The first week of December was always special on Maplewood Lane. Every year, neighbors strung up twinkling lights, glowing wreaths, and inflatable snowmen. The street had become something of a local tradition, drawing families from nearby neighborhoods who drove by just to admire the festive displays. This year, Mark and his family were especially excited. They had purchased new LED lights and planned to turn their home into a winter wonderland. Mark spent the entire weekend on a ladder, carefully draping lights along the roofline, wrapping trees in glowing strands, and adding a synchronized music system that played soft carols. By Sunday night, their house shone brighter than ever. The kids were thrilled. Even the neighbors stopped by to compliment his work, saying it looked like something out of a holiday movie. But not everyone shared that joy. Monday morning, Mark found a thick envelope taped to his front door. The HOA seal on the corner told him it wasn't going to be good news. Inside was a formal letter from Karen, the HOA board member notorious for nitpicking every small detail in the neighborhood. The letter declared Mark's holiday lights excessive, non-compliant with community guidelines, and a visual nuisance. He was ordered to remove them within 72 hours or face daily fines. Mark couldn't believe it. For years, Maplewood Lane had been known for its lights. There was no rule in the HOA handbook banning them, only vague language about maintaining neighborhood harmony. Clearly, Karen had decided she would be the sole judge of what that meant. Over the next few days, Mark noticed Karen driving slowly past his house, taking pictures. She also sent emails to the entire neighborhood, claiming that gaudy decorations were lowering property values and attracting unwanted traffic. Some neighbors rolled their eyes and ignored her, but others worried about being targeted themselves. At first, Mark thought about scaling back the lights just to avoid trouble. But then he remembered last year, when Karen had bullied the Thompsons into removing their inflatable Santa because it wasn't tasteful. And the year before, when she had complained about someone's wreath being too large. It was always something with her. The letter lit a fire in Mark, not the kind that warmed you on a winter night, but the kind that burned through frustration and turned into resolve. He wasn't just decorating his house anymore. This had become a matter of principle. By Thursday, the 72-hour deadline had arrived. Karen expected compliance. But instead of taking anything down, Mark added more lights. He lined the driveway, outlined the windows, and even placed a glowing reindeer on the roof. If Karen thought the first display was excessive, this one was practically electric daylight. Neighbors started to notice. Some came by to cheer him on, while others worried about what Karen would do next. Mark knew she wouldn't take this lightly. Karen loved control, and she wasn't about to let one homeowner challenge her authority. That night, Mark sat on his porch with a mug of coffee, admiring the shimmering colors reflecting off the fresh snow. He knew he had just declared war on Karen and the HOA. And judging by the angry email that hit his inbox at midnight, Karen knew it too. The fight over a few strands of Christmas lights was about to turn into something much bigger. The next morning, Mark awoke to find a new envelope jammed into his mailbox, marked urgent. This one wasn't just a letter. It was a formal notice of violation from the HOA board. Daily fines of $150 would begin immediately if the lights were not removed by midnight. The signature at the bottom belonged to Karen, her name written in sharp strokes as if she'd carved it into the paper. Neighbors whispered about the situation as they walked their dogs or shoveled their driveways. Some were amused, calling Mark's home Santa's fortress. Others were anxious, worried that Karen's crusade against the lights would soon target them as well. A few even considered taking down their own decorations to avoid being next. Karen, meanwhile, was relentless. She sent out another all-neighborhood email claiming that Mark's light display was an egregious eyesore and distracting drivers. She even threatened to contact local police about unsafe conditions, though there was nothing unsafe about a few Christmas lights synchronized to music. It was clear she was trying to scare Mark into submission. But Mark wasn't rattled. He spent the afternoon adding another layer of lights around his porch and installing a glowing archway over his sidewalk. Every time Karen passed by in her shiny SUV, she slowed down to glare at him. By sunset, the neighborhood was buzzing, not just with the hum of lights but with excitement. Mark had become the symbol of resistance against Karen's rule. That evening, the HOA held an emergency meeting at the clubhouse. Karen stood at the front, fuming as she lectured about preserving neighborhood standards and maintaining property values. But something was different this time. Residents spoke up. They questioned why holiday cheer was suddenly a violation. They asked why Karen was spending so much time and energy policing decorations instead of fixing the broken fountain near the entrance or replacing the streetlights that had been out for months. Karen dismissed every complaint, insisting the rules were the rules, even though no one could find any clause that actually banned holiday lights. When Mark calmly pointed this out, Karen grew red-faced and threatened to escalate the matter to legal channels. Her words hung in the air like a winter storm warning, but instead of scaring people, they only made them angrier. By the weekend, Mark's quiet protest had spread. The Johnsons next door added more lights to their roofline. The family across the street put up a 12-foot inflatable snowman. Even the Thompsons, who had been silent since Karen bullied them the previous year, decorated their yard with glowing candy canes. It seemed the entire street had united to defy her. Karen's fury reached its peak on Sunday night. Mark returned from buying more extension cords to find a bright orange sticker plastered across his front door. Final warning, HOA enforcement action pending. It was a blatant attempt to intimidate him, and it only fueled his determination. Mark knew what was coming next. Karen wouldn't stop at warnings. She'd push the board to issue fines, maybe even try to get his decorations forcibly removed. But she didn't realize she'd already lost control of the narrative. Because Maplewood Lane wasn't dimming its lights. It was getting brighter. Chapter 3. The night the street lit up. By Monday morning, Karen had gone from annoyed to desperate. She called an emergency vote with the HOA board to authorize immediate enforcement action. Her plan was to hire contractors to take down Mark's lights, fine him heavily, and make an example out of anyone who dared to defy her. But things didn't go as she expected. Several board members had grown weary of Karen's obsession with controlling every detail of the neighborhood. When she pushed for action, they hesitated. Questions came up. Was this even legal? Did the bylaws truly give the HOA authority to remove holiday decorations? What if Mark sued? Karen's voice grew louder, but the support behind her grew thinner. Meanwhile, Mark was busy preparing for what he called the big switch-on. He invited neighbors for hot cocoa and cookies in his driveway. Word spread quickly, and by evening, nearly the entire cul-de-sac gathered outside. Families brought chairs, bundled their kids in blankets, and waited for dusk to fall. As the sun dipped below the rooftops, Mark flipped a master switch. His house exploded with color, waves of synchronized lights pulsing to Christmas carols, trees shimmering in perfect rhythm, and a massive star glowing from the roof. But Mark wasn't alone. In solidarity, every house on the street lit up at the same moment. The once quiet neighborhood became a dazzling festival of light. Karen arrived in her SUV just as Jingle Bell Rock blasted from Mark's front yard speakers. She stopped in the middle of the road, stunned to see not just one house defying her, but every single one. The Johnsons had strung candy canes across their yard. The Thompsons unveiled a glowing Santa on their roof. Even the most timid neighbors had added a strand or two just to join the stand. She stepped out of her car, furious, but no one listened to her anymore. Parents laughed, kids ran around with sparklers, and someone handed Karen a cup of cocoa as if to say, "You can't stop this." Cameras came out, and photos of the glowing street hit social media that night. Locals drove in from other neighborhoods just to see it. Maplewood Lane became famous, not for conflict but for community. By Tuesday, the HOA board had enough. They quietly voted to cancel Karen's enforcement motion and formally clarified that holiday decorations were welcome, as long as they were safe. Within a week, Karen resigned from the board, claiming personal reasons. Mark never paid a single fine. His house stayed lit all through December, joined by every neighbor on the block. What began as one man's stand against petty power turned into a celebration of unity. The lights, once called an eyesore, became a symbol of the neighborhood's spirit, bright, unbreakable, and impossible to control. That Christmas, Maplewood Lane wasn't just glowing. It was alive. End of story.